Are we recording? I hope we're recording because we just did an entire video. Thankfully, it was a short one where basically we we had nothing. We did a reaction to a Vanos gaming video, and turns out we got nothing because apparently the recording software bugged or something. I don't know.
Moore just ended up watching it just for the fun, I guess.
Yeah. Not that I minded it, because yeah, it was a fun video. But now we're moving back into casual geographic. And this is a rare occasion, because casual geographic is admitting animal facts that I got wrong. Do I smell a scandal? Is this going to break everyone's trust in casual geographic? No. No, it's not. Casual Geographic is going to continue to be the amazing channel that he is, and he's just going to keep making these videos as long as he desires. And you know what?
When you throw out the ridiculous amounts of, like, informative it's a redundant way to say it. Informative facts about things, like, you know, it's really hard to keep a 100% accuracy rating at all times.
Well, yeah, because science is not something that really plays by the rules of, like, well, that's it, and there's nothing else to discover about it. Wrong answer. The answer is often updated over time, and what you once thought was the truth is now instead something completely different. That's just the nature of science.
I'm trying to remember things such as that. Like, I know there's been a few things that we were taught in school when I was a kid.
Well, for instance,
and
the law of
things
gravity.
that we were taught are no longer accurate.
Well, Newton's law of gravity. Turns out the law of gravity isn't exactly... It's not been completely subverted, but it is up in the air because of Einstein's theory of general relativity and, like, where gravity comes from. Because originally... Newton was just like, oh yeah, we have gravity on this planet because the Earth is spinning. And thus, because of centrifugal force, we are being drawn down to the Earth. Which, in certain cases, can be true, but until we know everything there is to know about relativity, the law of gravity is still in place, but it's not, you know, it's not as concrete as it used to be. That's one of the biggest ones that I can think of. But, anyway.
One of the biggest ones I can think of is we were taught that there were 9 planets in our solar system.
Turns out there's only 8.
Now we're saying Pluto ain't one no more.
No, Pluto technically isn't because...
Poor Pluto.
Well, Pluto originally was thought to be the same size as Neptune, but after, you know, observing it more and more and more over time, they discovered that Pluto is actually a lot smaller, like really, really small. It's actually smaller than a lot of the moons that are orbiting several planets. So here's what they did was they looked around and they started to discover that, oh, turns out there's other masses out where Pluto is that's around the exact same size, made up the exact same material, and I don't think it's a planet because we went through this before with the asteroid belt. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, originally, there were other planets that they thought existed between Mars and Jupiter. Turns out, they weren't planets, they were asteroids. Asteroids in the asteroid belt. Now, Pluto was a planet and was going to be considered a planet up until they found another mass out in the outer regions of our solar system that either matched or exceeded Pluto in size. And that happened in 2006. And that's why Pluto was downgraded from a planet to another, basically an asteroid in the now known Kuiper Belt, which is the outermost ring of asteroids that surround our solar system. So, yeah, little lesson on why Pluto is not a planet. It's not. I'm sorry. I know there's a lot of people out there.
Still a planet by honorable mention in my heart.
Well, it's because it's what we were taught. And
especially since like, my favorite band's lore is written around the idea that 9 planets and a sun broke off of the original, like, formation of planets and disappeared out to who knows where by themselves.
Coheed and Cambria.
Yeah.
I know the one you're talking about. But my whole deal is, like, it's because it's what we were taught, and there's going to be generations from here on out that are never going to know that Pluto was ever a planet. And you know what? That's just how it goes. I mean, every generation learns things differently. It's like our way of looking at math, which is basically, you know, derivative math, whereas Common Core math, which is an abomination that should never be taught. Good God.
Oh, also just speaking on animals, I did remember one thing. The idea of what exactly is up with Komodo dragons and why they're deadly keeps going back and forth on different studies.
Exactly.
Because
They
for
can't
a
decide.
very long time, me growing up, I had heard that it was entirely that they had just such an amalgamation of bacteria in their mouths that they were fatal if they bit you because of that.
Yeah.
But it come to find out recently, more studies have been done, and now they are also venomous, supposedly.
There you go.
That's the most recent thing I heard, anyway.
And you see, that's the thing. It's always going to change because because as long as there are people out there who are willing to do research and have findings, and that these findings are backed up by scientific evidence, things are going to change. That's just the nature of it. So I don't fault Casual Geographic for getting facts wrong. See, I tied it back in there somehow. So yeah, I don't fault him.
I was trying to start to do that by talking about an animal.
Yeah. So, tying it back in, Casual Geographic has animal facts that he got wrong. And I guess we're going to see what facts he got wrong and see if there's corrections that he's going to give us. Anyway, let's check it out. Here we go.
Even the babies are one of the most dangerous animals in the world, so I built this cage to keep them secure so there's no possible... Oh, my God.
Hi! Oh, you're a big boy. Hi, you're so cute. What's your name? What's your name?
Right there.
Oh, hi. Vino Moose.
Oh,
hi,
no.
Vino Moose.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's the joke.
I have made a severe and continuous lapse in my job. I'm just playing. I'm playing. But can you imagine? Nah, but this is going to be an accountability video.
Oh, don't show Travis Scott, man. Come on. That dude had no remorse for what happened. None. And the fact that he's still performing and hasn't had to do any kind of, like, have any, like, recompense for it, it's wrong, in my opinion.
And honestly, it's all because of one comment I got on TikTok. Basically, someone commented on one of my videos disagreeing with me, and someone replied to that comment with something like, yeah, okay, I think I'm gonna believe the guy with 16 million followers. Yeah, that didn't sit right with me. Just because I have more followers than sheep in Scotland doesn't mean my word's law. Mistakes happen. That's why keyboards have backspace and DoorDash has birth control. So that's what this video is, animal facts that I've gotten wrong. Or at the very least didn't get 100%. And starting off is the fact that I don't really even know how I believed in the first place. I've already corrected this, but if you've been following me long enough, you've definitely heard me say that lions have a bite force of 650 pounds per square inch, almost half as strong as their brolic biracial tangerine colored cousins. Except more recent studies puts the lion's jaw work at closer to 1,000
Damn.
Yeah.
pounds. So what did an Afrocat do for us to lie on them so bad? Apparently it all goes back to a 2005 video from National Geographic where they tested a lion's bite force, except they got it from a subadult male lion that couldn't have seen more than 2 or 3 trips around the sun. That's like saying the average man's 5 feet tall because you took a tape measure to a bunch of 7th graders. Also, the number they got was 691, so Mufasa knows why it got nerfed to 650. We now believe that the Bane of Buffalo has a bite force more in the neighborhood of 4 figures, still just under carnivores like tigers and hyenas, but not by the landslide we originally thought. So apparently I owe lions in Africa and Detroit an apology. I was not familiar with their game. This video was recorded before the Buccaneers game, and I shall adjust my reaction accordingly. The 690 number spawned from an old show known as Dangerous Encounters with Brady Bar. And we're gonna learn that TV shows aren't the best source for the most accurate information.
No,
who would have guessed? Especially when it's from a time where Steve Harvey had hair and not hopes. Another fact I've said is that tigers are so strong that they can remain standing even after being turned into a statistic. Now, tigers are built like Greek sculptures modeled by furries. Blood from Zootopia proved that, but enough to stand on business even after they're physically finished? Well, if they do, it's probably more of a reflection on their stability than just raw strength. It also could be a freak accident that got reported as a fact. There was a guy that got his will activated while reaching for for something in his kitchen, and his friend legit found him that way. And there is at least one animal that does something similar. Since sloths have reverse grip, the Moss Motel of the jungle can be found hanging on a branch even after they've already been emancipated from the population. But can the cornflakes kitty? Maybe, but it's pretty unsubstantiated, so I probably shouldn't have mentioned it. Along with another fact I've spent most of my childhood believing, and I know for a fact I've said this at least once, that venomous baby snakes are more dangerous than the adults. The idea here is that snakes can consciously control how much venom they release, or if they release venom at all, but baby snakes with less experience, they empty the whole clip every time. Now the first part is true, snake venom is physically expensive to make, so a lot of snakes will compromise with dry bites to get the message across without spending the cost. It's like a blank shot from a gun with vibranium bullets, and the chances of getting a dry bite vary on the snake. The eastern brown snake delivers diet bites an estimated 80% of the time. Something like a taipan chooses mercy only 5%. Snakes can also actively control how much
That's
venom
crazy
actually
because the eastern brown is still responsible for more deaths, I think, than any other snake.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And 80% of its bites are dry bites, and it's still responsible for like the most snake deaths. Like,
That just shows you how powerful its venom is.
yeah, like that's horrifying.
comes out by contracting certain muscles. It's why only 1 in 500 snake bites in the US result in a census layoff. But does that mean baby snakes are worse? Well, no. Smaller, unseasoned snakes carry less venom, and science says you're more likely to get kicked off the mortal coil if an adult bites you. So my guess is that the myth came from an old wives' tale to keep kids from f***ing around and finding out with an immature fallen dread of Medusa. And I know for a fact I only got that from an old show on Animal Planet, and you probably know which show that is. It's the same show I also got this. For a minute, it was believed Komodo dragons catch bodies by biting their prey once and then waiting for them to...
I figure Kate probably didn't like that segment very much.
Yeah, sorry.
I've been doing exposure therapy with snakes and spiders. I just can't. It's interesting to learn.
Well, that snake yawned like a kitty cat.
Yeah.
You have to start being like, that's cute, instead of that's scary.
Yeah.
Nobody
Retired of
snakes.
I don't plan on it.
Oh, I'm not trying
Or
to
spiders.
convince you to let me buy a snake. I'm just
Or
trying
spider,
to convince you
I'm
that
not-
snakes are actually
We got
kinda
enough
cool.
pets to worry about. Why would we complicate things farther?
Not to mention, I already have plenty of pet spiders. They're all over the place.
Shut up.
bacterial infection.
getting
But really, the
outta
sooner
here.
a Komodo can drag you off the mortal plane, the better, since that just means less dragons to share with. Remember that Komodos are leather bloodhounds that track down death faster than the Reaper. Also, they might not be fast. They're much, much faster than you think. But this whole time, this Jurassic Park understudy actually kills with venom, with the helping of anticoagulants to keep you bleeding. That way, even if you escape, the homicidal steroid gecko can always hunt you down. We used to think it was blood poisoning, but apparently the bacteria in their mouths isn't really that special from any other carnivore. In fact, if you mouth swab the dragon, you'd actually find less bacteria than you would in something like a captive lion or a bipolar Looney Tune. And after looking further, I can tell you the misunderstanding definitely came from an injured buffalo's first instinct to run into water. And a buffalo taking an open flesh wound into dirty, stagnant toilet water is more of an indictment on the bush cow's hygiene than the lizards.
Yeah.
And speaking of water being your downfall, I've talked about animals that can't swim, and I once said that guinea pigs were on the list. Turns out I was wrong, and I can't even blame Animal Planet this time.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Little guinea
Furry
pigs.
potatoes.
Yes.
Guinea pigs can
Yeah, we'll
swim,
be
and in some cases can
okay
do
with
it for
the guinea
hours. The
I was
catch
gonna
is that
say,
they don't care.
like, guinea pigs don't look like they're built in a way that they couldn't swim.
Guinea pig. Well, again, like their bodies are not awkward enough. Like their motor functions are good enough to where they would be able to swim.
Look at that lip.
You get him.
That is almost my favorite thing about my guinea pig is his little lip. It's like,
For it very much. Most sources say guinea pigs get stressed in deep water, and while they can swim, their ancient ancestors avoided it to avoid getting canceled by predators, so nothing about it's a good time for them. In other words, I'm a fucking guinea pig. Now this isn't something I got wrong, but I still want to explain it a little more. So I mentioned how these finches inspired Darwin's theory because, well, long story short, different finches ate different foods and so developed different size and shaped beaks. Now technically, that's not wrong, but I feel like I made it sound like their beaks changed just because the birds needed them to. What actually happened was different finches were found on different parts of the islands, and depending on where they were, certain finches had an advantage. That advantage could have been something like a particular beak shape, and that advantage was more likely to get passed down more often. Eventually, certain traits would get selected for naturally, through purpose, not perfection. That's natural selection. And depending on the best food source, the finches most suited to feed and breed outcompeted the others. It's kind of like how giraffe necks didn't just get longer, it was more like longer necks outperformed shorter necks, and history just wasn't kind to the vertically deficient.
Yeah.
Actually, no, latest studies say the long neck actually came from their mating preference and the fact that giraffes like to run fades using their heads. So why the long neck? Apparently, FNS. To flex and sex. Apparently the only leave they were worried about is maternity. And speaking of eating, there's another animal whose meal plan I was completely wrong about. Opossums are the rat-tailed relic Australia left behind. They're also free pest control, since one pouch-packing possum can terminate 5,000 ticks in a season. Except they don't. I got that wrong. The number comes from an experiment where they introduced 100 ticks to different animals like mice, squirrels, and opossums, and counted how many ticks had fed and fallen off. According to the study, the opossum cage had way less ticks than all the others, so the assumption was that any tick that wasn't found at the bottom of the cage had likely been eaten. So they took the number of ticks left in the cage along with the population of ticks found in wild opossums to come to the conclusion that possums must put away 5,000 ticks a season, at least. Yeah, not the most solid logic, and later studies examining their stomachs and feces found that the shit literally didn't add up. Not only does Coma Kitty not pass 10 ticks by the thousands, ticks aren't even a preferred part of their diet. There are a lot of weird things about this faint weasel, like how their body temperature is so low that rabies gets possums more than possums get rabies, or that their nipples straight up look like a devil worshipping cult with 12 milk faucets circling one. But the whole thing about them being tick vacuums, that kind of falls on its face. But you want to know what doesn't fall on its face? Cats. They always land on their feet and can survive free falling from a building. So much that cats have about a 95% chance of falling from 10 stories and not flatlining on impact. At least that's what I said, but in the original study from 1987, out of the 132 cats that went to the vet after touching pavement from a window, 90% survived. Wait, 90% of the cats that went to the vet. Someone in the comments pointed out that this was a case of survivorship bias. Said, fair, you wouldn't take a dead cat to the vet. And out of the 90% that didn't instantly become a chalk outline, 90% of them had some form of thoracic trauma. 37% needed emergency surgery to renew their life subscription. 30% needed non-emergency treatment, and only a third tanked an accelerated sidewalk smack and walked away needing nothing. Also, 17 years later in 2004, another study showed that flights from the 7th floor and up actually caused worse injuries than lower drops, which cancels out the other thing I said about shorter drops doing more damage. So I think the real answer here is, unless you're Shane Dawson, treat your cats the same way you treat your kids, and don't—
Oh my god, really, dude? You had to pull out Shane Dawson?
That's fucked up.
Bro.
let either go out the window.
Like
Now for this next
danger.
fact, I'm gonna be honest, if it wasn't for one comment, I'd probably spend the rest of my life getting it wrong. And it's that REM is the deepest stage of sleep, and that insomniacs dream about being reincarnated as a platypus since nature's casserole gets more REM than any other animal. I was always taught that your eyes twitching out like Kai Cenat meant deep sleep. It's actually the third stage of NREM that's the deepest. It's called N3, and it's the closest you'll get to cosplaying as a corpse while having a pulse, since it's the hardest stage to wake up from. It's also the stage where your body repairs tissues, builds bones, restores muscles, and strengthens the immune system. Basically, you know how your phone will update at the gooch of dawn as long as it's connected to an outlet? That's the N3 stage of sleep. It's also when you're most likely to precipitate your sheets or traumatize your family, since that's when
What is this
bedwetting
music
and sleepwalking occurs. It only lasts about 20 to 30 minutes each stage, and if you're lucky, you'll get
Recognize
about
this
an hour
music,
and a
Nate?
half of N3.
Yeah, I'm trying to place it. Damn it.
Hollow Knight?
I think it might be.
That's the only thing I can think of because I know I've heard it recently. And I've played Hollow Knight the
But it's
past year.
N3 that's the deepest stage, not REM. But since REM is the dream stage, the platypus still has more real estate in
my
DreamWorks than
goodness.
Shrek. Now this next fact comes from deep in my
That's
TikTok
a
days,
poofball.
back when I wasn't so afraid of guidelines. That blue whales release 400 gallons worth of baby batter, with only 10% of that getting where it needs to go. And for the measurement impaired like myself, 400 gallons is like 10 bathtubs of whale maker. Except 400 is more of a reach than a whale's piece. It's actually like 5 gallons per session, and again, that's about one of these. Still, most of the liquid daycare ends up getting offloaded back into the ocean. Makes you wonder why it's so salty. That's a joke, by the way. It's sea foam. They're not actually playing in pre-whale. Speaking of tainted water, this next thing isn't something I got wrong or even said, but something I showed. I saw this video of a manatee getting an assist from some guy and honestly didn't think much of it. Apparently the law doesn't agree, because not only is this illegal, It's hella illegal. You don't want to give manatees water for the same reason you don't feed wild animals. Eventually, the water blimp could lose its fear of humans and boats and end up getting turned into a speed bump. The Florida Manatee Act of '78 makes it illegal to do anything to a manatee, mean, obscene, and anything in between. And if you're offering Dasani, they're honestly better off dead. As dead
During the offshoot of a friggin' boat.
as a dog from this video. Or maybe not. So you probably remember this story I told of a polar bear petting a dog before turning it into Nemo's mom. But it wasn't actually the same dog that got turned into bear bait the way I said. What happened was this video went viral. So viral that the Canada CBC News got a hold of it. So much that they basically aired the guy out and said that officials had to relocate 3 polar bears from the same property a week before after one of the bears erased one of the dogs. Apparently owner Brian Ledoux had been feeding the ice bears along with his pack of Eskimo dogs, and according to him, the one night he didn't feed the Glacier Goons was the night one of the dogs went on a play date with Old Yeller. It was actually before this video, and it wasn't this dog or bear. I think the timeline's still not 100% clear. Also, the Ledoux guy passed away in 2018, so I guess we'll never really know for sure.
Damn.
And you know what? That's okay. It's okay to not know. Science is constantly learning, unlearning, and relearning things. Matter of fact, a lot of the things in this video at one point were seen as 100% fact. I guess the moral of the story is, it doesn't matter how many followers I get, I'm not gonna get everything right. I'm just not afraid to admit when I'm wrong.
that's
Just like
gross,
Neil deGrasse
Mr.
Tyson
Giraffe.
said,
One of the great challenges in this world is knowing enough about a subject to think you're right, but not enough about the subject to know you're wrong.
what is blood waffling about? Alright, that's gonna do it. Drink water, hug your parents. Don't hug a manatee. Humanity's them enough. Let's make this a good year, and I'ma see y'all
Dancing Badger.
in the next one.
Pulling against the tiger. Are they pulling against the tiger? Oh, lion.
Lion.
That's how strong lions are. People underestimate how strong they are, dude. It's ridiculous, man. So yeah, some interesting facts that he got wrong, but you know what? It takes someone like a lot of gusto to admit when they're wrong. You know?
Baby platypus.
Yeah, little.
He's so cute.
Oh, so cute. And you know what? Here's what I'll say is, in terms of like admitting when you're wrong, hell, I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong. Hell, I gladly admit when I'm wrong. I think anyone who's like afraid to admit that they're wrong, it's like, dude, come on, like just swallow your pride and just understand that no one's perfect. There's nothing wrong with that. Also, I'm looking at the thumbnails for some of these, the one here with the cat, with like the Black Panther carrying the Panther cub. And then, of course, this one down here, which Nick doesn't want to look at.
Don't like that statue, no.
Yeah, even though it's a statue, it's not a real shark. Yeah.
Whoever made it's still a dick.
You think that one's bad? Imagine the sharks statue that was it was outside of this art exhibit in the UK. It was in the middle of this little alcove where where there was water, and it was like 4 sharks emerging from the depths, and it was just there.
Imagine if someone made a statue of the one from the Guttural Slug album cover.
Ooh, damn, that one's pretty wicked.
Nate's afraid of sharks too.
Well, I'm afraid of sharks, but not paralyzed to the point where I.
You
Not like I am.
you about shit yourself when you were a kid though.
Of course I did. I mean, honestly.
At Universal.
Here it is. Da, 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 da. That was an art exhibit that was in the City Road Basin in London. And the city...
I'm not a fan of that.
The city shut it down and basically got it removed. Which is unfortunate because, the city of London, basically, they're just like, you're not allowed to have an art exhibit that exceeds this much in height. And also, it must be matching of the local buildings, the local building style. And they were just like, it's an art exhibit, dude. It's an art exhibit. What do you expect? But all right. Anyway, yeah. So that was Casual Geographic with animal facts that he got wrong. And hey, good on you for admitting the mistakes. And hey, your mistakes weren't that bad either. The mistakes were, commonplace. And it was basically just like, it was mistakes that he wasn't the first one to make. And honestly, he won't be the last one to make those mistakes.
It's like the Komodo dragon thing. I feel like that's why I was saying that I've heard back and forth, because I think I heard him say the bacteria thing in a previous video.
Yeah.
And I was like, see, I had heard recently that they dispelled that because it's actually venom after all.
Yeah.
And before that, I had heard the bacteria thing. So now it's like, yeah, now back again to venom, like I was saying.
And there you go.
It's like some animals are confusing, man.
Very confusing. Well, anyway.
I mean, it's hard to know a lot about a giant, horrifying lizard that only really lives on one island in the world.
Yeah, a giant muscle lizard that specializes in death.
Especially when it's technically illegal to go to their island. So.
Yes. Anywho, we're going to end it here, everyone. I want to thank you for tuning in, and be sure to check out more from Casual Geographic by clicking his name in the title of the video. And until next time, I'm Nate.
I'm Kate.
I'm Nick.
Y'all be good people. Take care. Peace.